What's going on, everybody? It's Barmine from Barmine Tech, and today I'm going to show you how to VPN everything using Socks5 Proxy. So if you're not familiar, Socks5 Proxy is a Docker container we can run that acts as a proxy server for us, so we can integrate it with our VPN, and in return we can VPN everything in our house. So we can set all of our PCs to use a proxy server that's going to use the VPN. We can use our web browsers to use the proxy server and use the VPN. We could set our Docker containers to use the VPN through the proxy server. We could have everything do it, and you could even do it on your phones. You could tell it to use the proxy server to go through the VPN. So everything can use the VPN, and that's what we're going to do in this video is VPN everything. So it's going to look like this when we're all done. Now, there's not a lot of times that I show you my public IP address when I look it up, but here's the public IP address that's coming up today after I use this VPN. So I do have Surfshark, which is what I'm using for this, but this isn't where I am. This isn't my public address, and I'm not in New Jersey. I live in New York, and I do not get a 194 public address, so I'm going to show you how you can do this too, so let's get right into it. One thing you do need for this container is a VPN provider. So I use Surfshark. I like their plans. I've used them for a couple of years. It's a good provider. If you use private internet access, NordVPN, or whichever of them are, you do need a VPN provider because we are going to use one of those to tunnel out. Unlike the last video when I talked about doing VPNs to tunnel back into the house, that's not what we're looking to do here. We need an actual VPN that's using VPN provider servers so we can locate ourselves in a different area to protect ourselves from outside web traffic. So make sure you pick up whether it's Surfshark, NordVPN, private internet access, or any of the other ones you might find. This container does accept a ton of different ones, so make sure you have one, and then you can come back and watch the video and set this up. So let's continue and get this going. So as I was saying, we're going to use the Socks5 Proxy container, and here's the Docker Hub page of it. It's a super simple container. There's no interface to it. It's just getting the container off the app template, which of course Nova Spirit has, setting it up the way we need, and we also need one other container so we can use our VPN, and that's going to be Gluton. So I'm going to show you how to set both these containers up. It's super simple, and then we can get it going. Now, you might not be familiar with a proxy server, and that's okay. A proxy server is just a different flavor of a firewall. So here's a link from Fortinet, which is a great firewall vendor. I use them all the time at work. That's going to go over what it is. But pretty much a proxy server is a system or a router or a firewall that acts as another gateway in between you and the internet. So it's just going to redirect it so it goes at a different address, and in return protects you and hides, your personal address and uses a different address. So, your private address isn't going out, it goes out as a different public address. So proxy server is a really good thing to integrate, especially if you have a VPN like this, and then you can protect yourself from threats and malicious stuff and hide your public address so it doesn't get compromised on the internet. I'll put this link in the description so you can read through this article if you want. Like I said, Fortinet's a really reliable vendor. Nice write-up on them what a proxy server is, but let's get right into this. So to start, we're going to need to set up Gluton VPN Client. Now this is a container that's not in the app template, but it's going to be super simple to pull it in, and I'm going to show you how to. So I'm going to put the link to this Docker Hub down below. Make sure you use this one, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to use this Docker Compose file. So we're going to come in here, and we're going to copy this whole thing in the bar, and we're going to copy that. Now we're going to go to Portainer. We're going to App Templates, Custom Templates, Add Custom Template, and then we're going to name it Gluton, and then you got to put a description in. So you can put Gluton or VPN or whatever you want to do. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, there's going to be Web Editor, and you can come in here and you can just paste in the container. So now we do need to change a couple things in here. So I'm going to comment out this line with the # because I don't want these active. And then we do need to fill out a little bit of information. So we need to get our path for where we're going to do it. So to do that, I'm just going to right click over here and open up a new tab. I'm just going to copy the path for our containers out of one of my other containers. So I'm just going to scroll down. You can open up any of your containers, and you can see it has your volumes. And from here, I'm just going to copy all the way up to the last slash. So I'm going to copy that. I'm leaving out the container name because I don't need that. So then I can come back over here, and you're going to go right before the colon, so you can see my little cursor lines right before the colon. and then go all the way back to the slash. We're going to paste that in, and then we're going to add gluton after the slash. So now it's going to write to the right directory for our Portainer files app data config directory. That's the whole path, and then we're going to make the gluton directory, so just make sure you have gluton in there, and the :/gluton is still in there, because that's how Docker and Portainer is going to bind it to that volume. So make sure that when you add your volume in, it looks similar to this if you're using the app template that I talk about in my videos. So now that we have the volume set up, we need to set up the actual VPN provider. So to do that, we can scroll down over here, and you can see we have the section of VPN service provider and the information, and it has the link over here. I don't know if this link is still current, but we're going to give it a try. So I'm going to come over here, and we're going to open link in new tab. The wiki has been migrated at some point, so some of the stuff is different, but it looks like it's still bringing us here. So we do need to come in here, and then we need to find what we're looking for, whether we're going to use our provider and what service. So I'm going to use OpenVPN because it's going to work the best. You can use WireGuard, and I know I usually prefer WireGuard over OpenVPN, but in this case we're going to use OpenVPN. The config for WireGuard is a little tricky, and it doesn't always work right, so that's why we're going to focus on OpenVPN. After we click that link over here where it says see the GitHub, and it redirects us to the site, now we need to get our provider. So hopefully you already purchased your VPN, and if you're not and you want to watch this video and then buy it, no big deal. There are a list of supported VPN providers, and it's a bunch of them, so don't stress about which one you grab. But we're going to be on the setup page, and we're going to come up here and we're going to click on the providers folder. Now in here I'm going to look for my provider, which is Surfshark, so it's right over here. But you can use whichever one you're using, whether it's TorGuard, Slick VPN, Proton, Private Internet Access, whichever one it might be, Nord, but I'm going to use Surfshark. Make sure you use the one that you're using. Now, there's a lot of different stuff in here, but we're not going to grab all this information. We're just grabbing the provider name right now. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy Surfshark because that's what I need. And then we're going to come back into here and we're going to replace IVPN with Surfshark. Now we're going to leave it at OpenVPN. And now at this point you need your username and your password. So I'm just going to type this in for now. I'm going to change that before I do it, but you need to get your username and password. Now when you have your VPN provider, after you pay for the service, it's going to have your actual username and password you use to sign in to the web portal, which isn't the one you're looking for. Inside of there, when you start looking through the VPN options, there should be like a manual setup feature, and then it should give you OpenVPN or WireGuard or maybe some other options. You're going to look for the OpenVPN option, and then there it should give you a username and a password, and it should be a long key of maybe 50 characters, and they're all going to be randomized. That's what you're looking for, and that's what you're going to be pasting in those lines. If you have any issues, you could search around with your VPN provider and you should be able to find it really quickly. First time I was looking for that information, I had no idea what I was looking for, couldn't find it. But after you find it, super simple. I'm not going to show you mine because it's mine. But after you find it, you're going to paste it in there, and then we'll be able to pick it back up and finish out this container. The only thing left to do is to add the time zone. Now this is going to be where you want the VPN server to run out of, and there is different options, and it's a little bit particular. So it gives you the information here, but we're not going to have this just yet, just because of how the container is being written. So we're going to deploy the container right now, and then we're going to adjust it from there. So we're going to create the custom template, and now we have our custom template in the app template. So now we're going to click Gluton, we're going to deploy the stack, we're going to wait for the stack to deploy, and then we're going to have our container. So you can see it, you can't see it, but it's successfully deployed, and here's Gluton. So now if I come over to my containers, you can see Gluton is starting up, and if I click on it, it's filling the logs up, and it's not going to populate because I didn't put my account in, so I'm going to do that right now. So now that I added my credentials, if I look in the logs over here, and if you don't know how to get to the logs, we can go to containers, find your container, and the first one, it looks like a little piece of paper. If you hold over, it says logs. This is our container we're going to be looking at. This is our Gluton container, and you can see that it was able to connect, and it's running my public IP address over here is 107, and my location is in the United States. It's Houston, Texas. Now there are different locations, and you could look through your VPN provider and see locations if you want something closer to you. I'm okay with Texas right now. I did this last night and it put me through Canada and it made everything in French. So if you want to make sure that you're using the servers in your country, so at least your language is the same, you could do that. And then if we come back over to the wiki, and then under whatever your VPN provider is, there should be a link and it says list the VPN providers. I'm going to put all these links in the description. And this one's a little confusing. It used to be that they had it like actually in a wiki that you could see everything, but it looks like now they want more stuff to go through the Docker container. So you can run the Docker container and it'll give your servers, but we're going to come over here and we're going to look at this markdown document. Now it's kind of annoying that it's like this, but we're just going to search. So I'm going to look for Surfshark, and then we can look for, actually I'm going to do New York because I want something in New York. So you can come through here and then you can find which one you want, and then there will be different options. So like here's US, it would be New York City, so you would put in US New York City. That's actually what I have in my other container for my main one in my environment, but that's how you can get closer to your region. So you know, if you wanted New Jersey, you know, there's New Jersey, or if you wanted, you know, Texas or any of the other states, you can find it that way. And then you would just come back over here, you would come into the container, you would click on it, you would duplicate and edit, and then if we come over to environment, because it's going to be under an environment variable, you would change it. So then you would come down here and you would look for region. Ton of different ones, so there's a ton of different variables, so I'm just going to search for it and make it easier. So you can see over here server region, so then I would put in US New York City. Scroll back up, deploy the container. It's going to recycle the container, and if I come back over here and I look at the logs, it's going to refresh and it's going to give me a different address. So if I give it a second, now you can see I have a different public address and I'm going through New York City. So that's how you would change it if you wanted to get a different location. The one thing to keep in mind with this is that you are going to be using this as your outbound public address. So all your traffic that you're only routing through here is going to be routed through here, but it's also going to show is where you are. So if you're using, you know, an address in a different country, like I said, what I did it by mistake, and I had through Canada. It changed all my websites to French because it thought I was in Canada. So that's why you might want to look for a server that's closer to you, or at least in a country with the same language you speak. Hit or miss in Canada because they speak English and French, but that's why I kept it in the US, and I wanted to use it in New York City because it's a server closer to where I am. So it's less latency when I'm trying to get out. But that's enough of Gluton. Now that's all set up, I'm going to show you how to set up Socks5 Proxy so we can VPN everything. So let's start on that now. Setting up Socks5 Proxy is way simpler, and it just took a minute because we had to set up Gluton. So if I come over to the app template and I'm using Novaspirit's app template, I would just search for the container, just search Socks, and you can see it shows up. Now it's super simple and there's not much left to it, so we're going to deploy the container. Now you can see it deployed successfully, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to duplicate and edit, and then I'm going to duplicate and edit. Now these ports we're going to remove because I don't need them. One thing to keep in mind when you do go to deploy the container, if you have other containers that use 8080, this is going to be an issue, there's going to be conflicting. So you would have to change these ports and do maybe 7171 or 8181. So let me show you real quick how you can do that on the deployment so you don't keep getting the errors. I'm going to delete this container real quick, and then I'm going to come back to templates, and I'm going to do go Socks5. Now you can see over here it's small, but it's under the big administrator button. We're going to click advanced options, and over here it's going to show ports. So if 8080 has already been used in your environment, you can't use it again, so you can change it. So I'll do 7171. And now we can deploy it. Just, you gotta use a port that's not conflicting with something else. So now I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna duplicate and edit, and we need to add environmental variable. So I'm just gonna click environment, and then we're gonna come back to the Docker Hub page, and we're just gonna click proxy port. And it's gonna be what port we want to listen to. So we're gonna use 1080 because that's what they say in the write-up. So we're gonna do add an environmental variable. We're gonna paste in proxy port, and we're gonna type in 1080. So we're going to deploy the container second, so we have that set up. Now what we need to do, because we're going to route the traffic through Gluton, so we're actually going to come over here and we're going to delete these ports, and then we're going to come to network. So network, this is how we're going to use network in Portainer. So we're going to come over to the network tab, and then you'll see the bridge option. We're going to change that to container, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to select Gluton. So what this is going to do is route the traffic through Gluton, which is using our VPN. By doing this, now all the traffic for our proxy is automatically going to be VPN'd out. So this is why we're using this, so we can VPN everything through our proxy. Now, you're going to see that it's going to have a Gluton default network. You're not going to want to use that because it's not going to work properly. There is a way to do it, but it's very complex, and by doing this, it's much simpler. So we're going to do container, Gluton, and we're going to select that as the container. Now, every time that you redeploy the Gluton container or the Socks proxy container, you're going to have to make sure that it comes back over to network and select the right container, because it resets it for whatever reason. But we're going to click deploy the container. You could also change the restart policies if you want both these containers to make sure they always come back up. I would, just because you're going to be proxying everything out. Now we're going to come back over to Gluton. So now we just got rid of that stuff, and now we need to add the 1080 port to Gluton. So we're going to come over to Gluton, we're going to duplicate and edit. We're going to publish a new network port. And we're going to do 1080, 1080. We're going to deploy the container. Come over here, deployed successfully. You can see it's starting back up. I'll check the logs. It's grabbing the IP. So now we're actually good to go and add the proxy server to our machine. So let's do that. So now when we're ready to actually use our proxy server, we can come into, I'm just in Firefox, but you can come into settings and then come down to network settings. And in here you can enable Firefox just to use your proxy if you want. If you don't want your whole machine to use it. Thing to keep in mind when you're using the proxy, it's going to be VPN in out, so you might not have access to all of your local services anymore. So just keep that in mind if things start acting funky for you. But when you come into Firefox, you're going to go to manual proxy config, and then in here you're going to go to Socks host, and you're going to type in the IP address for the machine. So whatever machine that your Docker is running off of, and then the port 1080, that's what we use for our proxy port. You would click OK. And then you can come over here and you see I'm at what's my IP, and it's coming up with a different 1F46 address. So if I come back into Gluton, we can look at the logs. I'm having a little bit of trouble loading, but if I come into Gluton, 146 was that. If I looked at Gluton, you remember before, the 146 was the address that I had before. So it is going through the proxy and it's using my VPN. It's saying I'm in Utah, but I'm not using the Utah server. These IP address locating services aren't always right, but you can see I have the 146 address now. Another way you can use your proxies, you can come into, if you're on Windows, you can come into settings and you can just search proxy and it would bring up network settings. If I type it right, you see proxy settings, and there you could just say use a proxy server. You would click setup, and then you would just turn it on, and then you would type it in there, and then you would be able to use your proxy server, and everything would be routed out over the VPN, everything you do on the machine. So another option, you could do it that way. If you want to look at some of the logs, they're loading now, and if I come into the containers for the Socks5 container, here is the config, here's the logs coming in saying that the connection was allowed from my address. So 41 is my local machine, and here's Socks5 saying it. I just turned it off, so that's why it's giving me failed attempts. But here's all the connections that were just made through the proxy. And if I come back to containers, we remember I was seeing the 146 address, and here's the 146 address being used in the container. So that's the VPN. So everything is working and it is being routed out. Now, this is a great tool to use because now everything's going to be protected from anybody that might be spying on you outside of your house. Your IP address is going to be protected, and you have a VPN that you could use all the time. We've VPN'd everything in our house. So you can configure the proxy settings on maybe other Windows machines in your house. It'll always use a VPN going outbound. Proxy settings are going to limit some stuff, so you can add different sites and stuff to be excluded from the proxy if you need, the geolocation or whatever it might be. but now everything will be able to use a VPN. So this is a really nice step and a really nice project to add into your home lab, especially if you're interested in using VPNs. I know a lot of people have been asking about VPNs in my Discord, so here's a video how you can VPN everything. Just keep in mind that if a gluton goes down, your proxy is going to go down. So make sure that the restart policy is either until I stop, or whatever the option is, or always restart. And the same thing with the Socks proxy. You always want it to restart and make sure that it's working, because then you're going to lose your internet connectivity. You could also use this proxy in a lot of the other Docker containers, and you could also use the way I routed the Socks5 traffic through the gluton container with some of your other containers as well. So if there's other containers that you want to use a VPN for, you can use in that same method that I routed Socks5 through gluton. So that works in other ways too. So I hope you guys like this video. Like I said, VPNs are important. Everybody should have one, and why not be able to VPN everything in your house? So make sure to check out some of my other videos. Join my Discord server so we can talk about some of our videos or any projects we're working on. Drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. We're coming up on 1,000 subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough for everything. The channel has grown so much, and I love making videos. I hope you guys like watching them. So I'll see you in the next video. You guys enjoy.